I have with me today Jeb Bush, the former governor of Florida, who, when he was governor, saw the greatest improvement in student performance of any state in the United States. That was between 1998 and 2006. And one of the things that he did as governor was to address the problem of teacher quality. Jeb, there's a lot of problems in American education today, and one of them is the declining quality of teachers. It used to be that we recruited a lot of teachers from the very best schools in the country. It's harder to do that today. There is Teach for America, which is bringing a lot of talented people into the teaching profession, but in general, it's very difficult to get our very best college graduates to go into teaching. So what were some of the things that you did in Florida, and what are some of the things that could be done to enhance the quality of the teaching profession?
Well, thank you, Paul. It's always a joy to be with you. You're one of the experts that takes data and analyzes it and does the kind of research that allows policymakers to implement policies, and that's what I got to do as governor. In Florida, we had a growing student population and a teaching cadre of that was diverse, of course, because Florida's a diverse state, but a lot of teachers that were nearing the end of their career because of just the aging of our population. So 60,000 students a year, combining with a declining teacher population, required us to act before other states.
So more students, fewer teachers.
Yeah, not a good plan.
Yeah.
It was not a good plan at all. So what did we do? Well, we opened up our system. We have these antiquated certification programs that exist in the country that were designed literally 100 years ago. And the schools of education had robust programs back in the day, but they've de-emphasized that. And so we've created reciprocity for anybody that is credentialed as a teacher in any state can come teach in Florida.
Yeah, that was one of the real obstacles to teachers who had to move from one state to another and all of a sudden lost their job and couldn't get it back.
The system was designed to protect the existing teachers. It was a protectionist system, and we opened it up. I think other things that are important to do is if you're a subject matter expert, if you're an engineer and you want to teach math, in the old days you couldn't do that. You had to go back to school.
But well, that's just exactly where the shortages are in math and science.
STEM. So in Florida, if you're a subject matter expert, you can get a temporary certification to teach, and we've streamlined the process to be able to get a permanent certification. Paying more for the places where you have shortages is part of this. So, and paying teachers for rising student achievement. So if you want to build a professional teaching cadre, you've got to have professional development, but you also have to pay the extraordinary teachers more so they stay in the classroom.
Well, we tend to have a lockstep teaching
exactly.
Payment schedule. And
so Washington, D.C. is the best example of this, where teachers could opt out of the traditional collective bargaining process, which was a step plan based on how long you were there, to dramatic increases in spending for teachers that had great peer reviews by their fellow teachers, by the principal, who's the CEO of the school, of course, and by test scores for students. And the implementation of test scores as part of this, I think, is an essential part of this. Now, in Florida, we did something else. We bonus teachers outside of the collective bargaining agreement for schools that show improvement are A-rated. They get, in effect, $100 per student, the school does, and that goes back in the form of a bonus to the school personnel. It's $150 million a year. In Florida, if a teacher begins to teach AP classes, the school gets rewarded with higher points for a higher grade, and the teacher gets $50 per student for students that pass.
Well, does that have any effect on your AP enrollment, participation?
What a surprise. We've had three-digit percentage increases, particularly in the schools that never had AP classes. So the prime beneficiaries have been low-income students, and teachers get on average, if they're really all in on this, they get up to $3,000. Similarly for career certification. So rewarding teachers for dealing with the things you want, which is making sure that students are able to take advanced courses, and dealing with the shortages as it relates to effective teachers in low-performing schools, teachers in the STEM-related areas. A market orientation, in essence, is what has to be done, and Florida began that process. So look, if teachers do a good job, you don't want them to leave the classroom. You want to reward them, but not for inputs, not for being there for a long time. There's some great teachers that have been there 30 years, but there's also some that aren't that good. Why not reward people for rising student achievement?
Is there any way to discourage the ineffective teachers from remaining in the profession? That's something that
Can I be blunt about this?
Yes?
Yeah, you can fire them.
No.
Yes, you can in Florida.
Oh, okay.
And a few other states. Elimination of tenure was one of the elements that we did. And for teachers that have been in the classroom, they have to earn their tenure by by evaluations that show that they're satisfactory or excellent teachers. There should be no teacher after remediation that cannot deliver rising student achievement in the classroom, because it's so dangerous for students. And
so
at the same time,
how much remediation do you think is appropriate? Is it 1 year?
I think it's a year.
Give them a probation year?
I think it probably varies, but you have the Florida system. It's 3 years of performance data for student learning. So you're taking an average over 3 years, which I think is fair. And then if they are below average, significantly below average, they can lose their tenure. And all new teachers have no tenure at all. So the system needs to move to a professional system, not to a collective bargaining system that's basically a trade union. Teachers, I think, are deserving of higher pay, and we're deserving, families are, and our country's deserving of rising student achievement. So take Korea. Korea pays significantly high teacher salaries, and they finance it by higher class sizes. In places in this country, we think class size is the determining factor for student achievement. No, it's quality teachers.
So you're saying we could get better teachers and better schools if we didn't worry too much about having extremely small classes?
Class sizes, there's no indication. I just read your research. There's no indication that it yields rising student achievement. But an effective teacher in front of a student for a multi-year period delivers, and that's what we should be doing. I'm not saying let's just cram students in classes for no purpose, but wouldn't it be better to pay teachers more for a job well done? And one of the ways you could do that is not have these mandated lower class sizes as the norm in many parts of the country,
well, it's hard to
Florida.
imagine that we're going to have a great educational system without great teachers. And so these ideas are ideas that we have to do more than just talk about. We have to do something about them.
Yeah, and the people, interestingly, that oppose this generally are the unions that represent teachers and other school personnel, which is a tragedy because in reality, it's hard to get buy-in from the union leadership, but teachers desperately want to be recognized as professionals. And if they do extraordinary work, they want to be recognized not just in terms of a pat on the back. What's wrong with providing them bonuses and higher pay for the job they do? They have such a critical job. It is the one thing that matters as it relates to whether a child's going to learn.
Well, thank you very much, Governor. Good to have you with us today.
Thanks, Paul.